Hello and welcome to the Amber Stitt Show. I am your host, Amber Stitt, and today we have Rob Ferre joining us today. Welcome, Rob. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Amber. I appreciate it, and thank you for pronouncing the last name correct. We found a mnemonic device to help people remember how to say my name. It rhymes with hooray.
Okay, so what does it tie to?
It's really silly. One of my speaker friends said, well, since you're also a DJ, you should rhyme it with hip hop foray. Ho,
oh my gosh.
Hey, you remember that song from the 90s?
Well, even if you're not an 80s, 90s graduate from high school,
yeah.
I think it's played at weddings, so they should know, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm like the least hip hop person, but I play hip hop music when I am DJing, so.
Interesting. Well, let's let the audience know a little bit about you, because you're all over the place from what I can see. But you have kind of this multiple lines of your business model. Can you share with us a little bit? Because I think what's inspiring and why I wanted you on the show is that sometimes you hear people say kind of find the niche, stay in your lane. But I think once you know what you're talented in, you can really build out anything. So let's talk about how you kind of figure this out for yourself, because I think that would be great for the listeners.
Niches are great for people to be able to dive into and own that niche. For me, I'm ever evolving, but I think the thing that has been consistent throughout my life is my affinity for the stage, my affinity to be in front of audiences. And it all started in third grade when I performed on my first professional theater stage, downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. This is where I still am, in Utah, but it evolved over the years. I performed in school plays. I was in student government. I went to college at Southern Utah University, where I wanted to become a broadcast journalism major. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. The dream job would be to go work for ESPN. So what did I do? I went to go work for Disney. Disney owns ESPN. So I went down to Orlando, Florida, and I had a college degree in hand. And I was like, well, I'm going to do this college program thing, see what that's about. Well, little did I realize that they would put me in the parking lot at MGM Studios, which is now Hollywood Studios. Okay. So I was not on the path that I thought I was going to be. But I met my mentor, Elliot Hansen, after I performed my world famous magic show, which is completely fake and silly. But
okay, because I didn't know you did magic at all.
Yeah, so if people are watching this is what it is. I have a finger here. I'm going to grab the finger, and then I'm going to toss it up into the air, and then I'm going to catch it again. It's stuff like that. It's just silly and fun. I was at a mini high school reunion the other day, and one of my fellow high school mates, he's like, you have parlayed that magic show into a career. I'm like, I never thought of it that way, because I've been doing it. But the thing about this magic show, it's kind of like a door that opens up to my crazy type of entertainment. So I got recruited by Elliot to be able to go work in theme parks as a DJ, as an interactive host, DJ, getting people involved. I would play music while people waited in line for the Men in Black ride at Universal Studios. That was my first job as a DJ. Like, I didn't work in the club.
So cool. That's actually makes sense to get people to have something to do because the lines are long. Yeah. That's awesome.
And the great thing about it was a new audience every 20, 30 minutes. And so I could repeat some of the same jokes or try out new material, right? Sure. And it was just a lot of fun. And so it was a great way to cut my teeth as a entertainer. And so DJing is just a part of what I did. And I don't want that to define me, because I am an overall kind of, I would say, sucker for the stage. So I moved from Orlando, and I also worked as a game show host at the Nickelodeon Hotel. And that was a lot of fun as well. So that all ties
together, because your original connections going from Utah to Florida and going, I don't love this first job, but you stuck with it, made friends. And then there's little monuments in our lives that we don't realize the why, but if we can kind of persevere, I mean, this is just the beginning, right? Of where you saw this take traction.
Yeah. And I'm a speaker as well. And one of the things that I've learned from that experience is I'm the kind of person who does not like to be obscure. I like to be known. I'd like to be able to prove my worth to people. And I think a lot of people within any industry, like, I want people, my clients, my community to know my superpowers, my skill set. And so that's something I've always been fighting. I would walk into a new high school. Okay, they don't know me yet, but they're going to. I go to university. They don't know me yet, but they're going to. So that's kind of something that I've always had as a challenge to overcome in my life. And I will always love winning over people and being able to show them what I can bring to the table. So I moved from Orlando and I come back to Utah and I started my DJ business.
Okay.
And that started in 2007. So do the math, how many years we've been doing this, right? So 2007, 2020, 16 years.
I saw you on your last birthday. We got to celebrate that, I think.
That was October of 2022. So yes. So if we're dating me, born in 78, 44 years old. So it's been there we go. Yeah. So we're kids of the 90s, child of the 80s. So teens of the 90s, we'll say that. So I moved back to Utah. I started my business, Live for the Party. And I scaled it in the sense I started hiring other DJs and performers to start working for me under my brand of entertainment. That slowly moved into more MCing, where I started doing MCing weddings, MCing nonprofits, galas. And then in 2015, I joined the National Speakers Association, which really changed my trajectory as to what I'm doing as a speaker, as an MC. I was also part of the National Disc Jockey Association. And I started speaking kind of by accident. My sister-in-law said, "Hey, do an assembly at my school." I'm like, okay. I guess I'm a speaker now. But the thing about it, sometimes, and this can be with any profession, we have set maybe parameters or definitions of what we do, right? Well, you're a financial advisor, but I'm more than that, right? Or you're an accountant, but I'm more than that. But we have to define these things so people have context. And so sometimes I have to provide the problems and the solutions that I bring to those problems. And so saying DJ is one of my skill set, speaker is one of my skill set, MC is one of my skill set. But I always tell people I'm a sucker for the stage, but what I bring to the table is creating engagement.
Right.
I like to say I'm an engagement expert.
There you go. Well, so I follow a curriculum of Gallup Strength Finders, but then I've done other things like Enneagram and just different personality tests. And so it's almost like when you're talking about third grade going into high school and then moving on, it's almost like you have this, they call it woo. I haven't had your assessment done with me, but this is that woo is loving to win people over. What I like about what you're saying is you're not being apologetic. I mean, there's no apologies for like, hey, I want to win you over.
So you said it's called woo. What is this?
Woo. So woo is a theme in the Gallup Strength Finders set. So there's 34 themes. And so there's communication, and then some people have woo and communication. Woo can be very quick, win people over, the icebreaker. And if you're tying, I'm feeling like your path, you've always known this about yourself, and there's no apologies. Like it's almost like a competition with yourself. Like I got to get in this place and I got to let people know and have some fun with them. There's some joy in that. And then you're ever evolving that. So I think it's important for me with the audience. With the steps, we talk about focusing on talents first. However you figure that out for yourself, run with that. If you're in your flow and there's something that makes you happy, that's probably where you need to stay because life's too short to not be doing what you love. So, but then you were patient with it and you just kept going and working through what you know you're good at. And there's this foundation of the woo, I will say, or the engagement. You could translate into the DJ, the MC. It's really working with people, allowing people to have some fun. And then hosting might be a different platform, and then podcasting. But I've met you on stage and I'm fortunate enough to focus on working with different organizations. I've been able to build a network of friends all over the place. Working from home and through social media, but then also going to conferences. And that's where I was lucky enough to bump into you a few times. And I'm like, okay, I need to talk to you. And I kind of pulled you aside. Luckily, last October, I could meet your wife too, because she traveled with you. So I've kind of cut you off here. Let's go kind of back into as you're intertwining, but then you started traveling.
Yes, but I want to build upon this really quickly, what you said, and then we'll get into the traveling and the other things, how I built my career. What you have done really well is identified some of my core strengths And you've said, this is how I've applied those things. And I've never really thought about it that way as far as the woo, winning people over. And one of the things that I try and do about winning people over, it's a lot about empathy. It's a really core strength that I have. Also curiosity. I also took a certification course with Phil Jones, which is exactly what to say. And he says, lead with curiosity. When you lead with curiosity, it opens up conversations. And I don't think a lot of people do that. My wife says I'm like a human puppy dog. I meet people and I said, I am your friend. Let's be friends. What are we going to do now? What are we going to talk about? Right. And so when I do events, I actually show up to the cocktail parties. I show up to the after parties, and I go to those events, and I am all about the human connection. I'm not a person who just shows up to events and goes like, okay, I'm going to do my job and leave. Yeah. With that being said, we'll go back into the evolution. So NSA, like with any community, I think we met at NAFA, which is an association for financial advisors. Whatever you do, I think if you're looking to expand what you do and showcase what you do, join an association, join a community where you can be of service. And that's what I've always done. I've always been of service. I did it in high school when I was part of student government. I did it in college, part of student government. I was also, I had a TV show where I involved other students at SUU, Southern Utah University. It's always my goal to get more people involved. And it's fun when people approach me and they say, I want to do what you do. And then I've trained others to be a part of my DJ company. I've trained other DJs, and I don't hold on to my secrets, but nobody can replicate my brand and what I do. So I've had
people, for sure.
Right. But I've had people in my life, they say, well, I can't believe you're teaching your competition to do what you do. And I was like, they're not my competition.
Right.
Right. So people are going to be like, well, we can't get Rob. I'm going to look for his competition. I'm going to look for the off brand, whatever. Right. But here's the thing is there's plenty of work for everybody. If I can't do the work, who am I going to refer? Somebody that I trust, and that trusted professional. My hope is it will come back.
So I have to interrupt. That's one of those things that I know I have high communication. I like to talk a lot. But we have to touch on this because there's a lot that you don't know about what I call the fifth step of my Pathways of Peak Performance, and that's focusing on community. So you're saying if you have this trusted network, there's people to refer to. When I originally was thinking about this is like, okay, if we have obstacles in our life, what do we do to bounce back, have resilience? And so if there's something going on in our life, can we refer out? So I was initially thinking about clients and having a trusted network for clients. But if you have a trusted network of people and colleagues that you're sharing ideas with and you're collaborating with, business can get a lot more fun. And there's something that you said, and just last night I was in a nonprofit panel with some people that are getting their securities licenses. So just some of those tests that are really rigorous. And so I was on a panel talking about that and how traditionally the financial services, so again, NAFA is where we met, we can see all types of business models, but some of the old school business models was to be the biggest firm. And we see that in tech and all these other places, but I have learned to work together with people, and I have so much fun sharing clients with people that we have different expertise. We stay within our specialty, but then it's just so much fun. So I think you're living that too. From what I'm hearing, there's just so much there, and it can be certainly helpful when times are tough to have that community of people. Even if you're mentoring, there's some menteeship that can kind of come back and kind of reciprocate too at times when we need it. So I feel like it's so important to have a community, even through social media too. There could be trusted colleagues that you can meet that way. I mean, we don't even live in the same state, and we see each other out and we have some fun talking on the side when we can. So it's just so fun. We can do so much now.
And to build upon that, there was a financial advisor that approached me at that event, and always selling, always working. And I let him know that I already have a person. But he said, think about it this way. I have a policy. I have something that might be a benefit to you. I was like, well, I don't want to leave my guy. And he said, well, let's approach it this way. How can we collaborate together? Ooh. Let me have a conversation with him, and maybe we can work together. We can refer business. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Instead of poaching, he's like, why don't we create a conversation and make this a win-win for all of us? And I thought that was a great approach, because that was my, I'm very loyal. right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody approaches me.
You are a puppy dog, so there's that.
And it's hard for me to say like, sorry, I'm going with somebody else. Like if there's no face to it, right? Verizon from AT&T. Right.
Yeah.
But there's like a big conglomerate like AT&T, like, oh, sorry, AT&T, we're going to Verizon.
Yeah.
They don't care. Yeah. But now when I'm going from a financial advisor that I know and trust to a new one, that's hard for me. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so his approach was quite different. Instead of like, oh, I want to poach your business. No, let's collaborate with your current advisor. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. So rewind back to 2015, I joined NSA and I started getting, and this is another part of my journey is where I went to school at SUU, their mantra, their logo, their motto, whatever it may be, it is this: learning lives forever. And so I am constantly learning to evolve. And I took a while to kind of figure out where I really want to go with my career. I dabbled in different things, but I always knew I wanted to be an entertainer. And I like being my own boss. I don't like being in business. There's a distinction there. So business is just the part that I don't really like doing, is the minutia behind it. But I like being able to have the flexibility to not have to do a 9-to-5er. I love the variety of events and people that I get to meet. So once I discovered NSA, I found other speakers and my world was opened up to me, and I felt this kinship immediately. And I found my tribe, right? Yeah. And I went to the national conference and I walked through those doors and I see all these amazing speakers. And the National Speakers Association, their mantra, which was established by their founder, Cavett Robert, was make the pie bigger. And what did he mean by that? When he first started the association back in the 70s, people were like, if we're going to make an association of speakers, there's not enough work for us. It's going to be harder because we're all getting together and we're all fighting for the same piece of the pie.
Right.
He said, well, let's just make the pie bigger. Right?
I love it.
Just making it bigger. How do we make the pie bigger? By creating more abundancy through professional work. We are now creating more demand for what we do. With our abundance mentality, we create more demand for what we do. My hope is that makes sense. I have seen other speakers, or I've worked with other advisors, and what they do is amazing. I need what you can offer. So when we see other great speakers, when meeting planners see great speakers, see great MCs, I need more of that. And so I see the same trends on a micro level in weddings. So I'll tell you this, like weddings, New Jersey is like the proving ground for like doing good stuff, because New Jersey, they put on great weddings. They have the highest budgets for weddings in the entire United States. Right. Utah is at the low end, which is weird. But you see the trends happening in New Jersey. So there's these things called sparklers. They're the cold sparks. They fly up into the air and they do their first dance and they dip and they kiss and the sparks go up into the air. That's the proving ground was in New Jersey. It wasn't popular here in Utah. We're trying to sell these things, right? And couples are like, I don't know. But then they see it on Instagram and they're like, I want that.
Yes.
I want that experience. So sometimes it's hard to be like, take a chance on this. And then if those trends start happening. So that's just an example of how something can become bigger and we're creating more abundance. It's just a small example. But the idea is if you do your job really well, you're going to create more demand for what you do, and you can't do it all. And so why not have a trusted community that you share with?
Yeah. Do you remember at the MDRT conference in October, did you listen to Jason speak about the generations? And he walked through, when you're talking about abundance, I'm super excited about the younger generation because of what I've learned from their data. The abundance mindset, the ability for younger people to find solutions. They don't have to wait to go to school or learn how something works. Go find a mentor. I mean, there's a whole other side of maybe too much tech or social media or watching videos, but the younger generation, from what I've heard from the data, was that they act a lot like baby boomers with their savings and their money. Yet think about what they're learning from such a young age now. So when you're talking about this abundance mindset, I'm really excited for what's to come because I feel like there's going to be a lot of creation in business, entrepreneurship, whatever needs to be there will be because there's people creating constantly now. So I really feel that that could be really good for us. And I don't know if you have anything to speak to on that. I'm throwing you a curveball, but I really loved appreciating the older generation. We all had a laugh about how the Xers don't want to be the millennials, and then the millennials, there's eye rolls between the generations. But, you know, if we just respect every place that people have come from and learn from every phase, there's wisdom in what has been done. But I feel like there's some mad respect coming from the younger generation. I think they're going to do even more than we ever had because they have the resources. What do you think about that?
Multiple thoughts on that. I am on the cusp of two generations. I'm on the saddle of Gen X and millennial.
Yep.
I can identify with both, and I get both. And I think what we're even maybe talking about is the Zennials, the young generation where I think it's 25 and under, right? And every generation does like, well, back in my day, or we didn't do things like this, and da-da-da-da-da, right? And they're always looking at the next generation saying, they have it easy, they have it good, whatever, da-da-da-da-da-da. And we're trying to place blame or we're trying to identify. But what I think you have found, as weird as it may seem, TikTok culture. Now, TikTok, it has good and it also has some terrible like aspects to it. Sure. This is what I found from TikTok that I love is the collaboration culture. My favorite TikToks starts with one person, and this is something I speak on. I speak on how can we create a movement, taking it from me to we. This is my core message, where how can I bring others to the dance floor? The dance floor is the metaphor for whatever we do. The dance floor is your meeting space, your community, whatever. TikTok is a platform, a dance floor. We see this all the time. And one of my favorite examples was over the pandemic. I don't know if you remember the sea shanty trend, where people were singing sea shanties. You're like, what is this? So there's this kid out of Scotland who took these old 100-year-old sea shanties and he would sing them on TikTok. And what you can do on TikTok is it's called a duet. So you would sing the song a cappella. Another person would bring in the rhythm. Another person would bring in an accordion. Somebody would bring in a lute or whatever. And so they created this whole orchestration where it just turns into something beautiful with people all over the world. And they're saying, how can I add to that? And one of my favorite TikTok, it's the silliest thing. It's a cat licking milk going, yum, 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 yum. And then somebody starts to play a rag on a piano. And then another person has a beat and a drum. And that is the spirit of collaboration where you have this, I have this. Yes, and that is also part of my mantra. I am a student of improv, and improv is yes, and how can I build upon that instead of saying, I don't like that idea, stop it. Somebody introduces an idea on the stage of improv. It's raining cats. You are not going to say, oh, it's never rained cats. Yes, and of course it's raining cats. Get out your dog umbrella, right? You're building upon that. It may be absurd. That's an absurd thing. But in the real world, we can yes and all the time. So somebody brings something to the table. I love that idea. Yes and. How can we build upon that together?
Because even with grammar, there's words that we can use in a comma, but something. And I've learned from even writing coaches that you don't say but, you just use the and or something else to then replace it. It moves it from a negative connotation, which can sound very woke, but you know, it's still, there's words are powerful and our brains are very powerful. So if we're always introducing some of this positivity there and the and collaborating, I mean, back to the global part of it though, I mean, that's what, there's really no excuses anymore. There's so many opportunities. Find out what you love to do. Don't do things that are taxing and then apply it. So back to the teamwork or the themes when we talked about your woo, but just as I've worked with others, so other things outside of insurance planning that have happened for me is I've been able to coach financial firms with their teams because I've been on the support role. I've been an employee and I've also been a business owner. So I've seen different sides. I've had different licenses, taken different tests. We don't want to change people. We want to learn, what are you great at? And then how do we plug in the team and put everyone in the right position? I mean, there's always going to be parts of our job that we don't love. Like you said, I don't love the minutia of the business, some of the administration. I want to just go out and have some fun and perform and engage and bring people to the dance floor. So we obviously have to do some of the work we don't love, but really learning more about people and then putting them where they belong. And that's the yes and, essentially, when you think about team engagement, or even appreciating your partner in your home being different from you. There's a lot of fighting that can happen when people don't see the same goals the same way, receive information the same way. Maybe they don't read, maybe they need to listen to the audio podcast, watch a video. There's so many ways that we can learn more about each other and appreciate the differences. And so we don't want everyone to be the same. We wouldn't get anything done.
No, we got to rely on each other's strengths and acknowledge those strengths. So we're still in the journey here. I haven't lost the train of thought. So back in 2016, I took some coaching workshop. I've had people that I've always leaned on, mentors, people that are steps ahead of me, and I want to learn from them. And that's something that's always been important to me. And reason I also do these paid coaching, and I think it's really important to pay somebody, because you don't invest in, if you're just picking somebody's brain, or you want to be able to like, hey, I just want to learn from you. But if you pay them, there's investment in there and there's accountability. So a great speaker friend of mine, his name's Jason Hewlett. We're actually the same age, but he's years ahead of me in the career of speaking. He's been doing it for years. And I took his coaching program, and he introduced me to multiple people and gave me opportunities. And when he had an opportunity that he couldn't do, or it was not aligned with where he wanted to be, he would refer. So the reason we're meeting today is because of Jason Hewlett. Jason referred me to NAFA. I did their virtual event. Once I did their virtual event, that spun into their live event, which also spun into another event, which was the $1 Million Roundtable. Jason had done that event 4 years in a row. The next 2 years was my friend Jeff Savilico, who I met through Jason Hewlett. But I was following two of my favorite people, my heroes, my friends, my mentors. And these are people that I also see as equals, right? But we learn so much from each other. And those stages are because of my relationships. But I think they also recognized what I wanted to do, and I let them know. And I'm constantly asking questions. But when they ask questions and they need help with gamification, which is one of my specialties, I'm always happy to offer help. And so I think when it comes to collaboration, it can't be a one-sided approach.
Yes, absolutely.
And I always tell people, if you want to learn from somebody, don't use the term, I want to pick your brain. If I wanted to learn from you, Amber, I'd say, I'm fascinated by what you do. Would it make sense for us to set up a Zoom call? And I want to learn more about what you do and maybe how we can collaborate or things like that. And there's always, when you end those conversations with, how can I help you? Right? And sometimes when I help somebody and they ask me that, they said, well, you've helped me so much. How can I help you? I'm like, just let people know what I do. And for me, I live by top of mind awareness. So I do these podcasts. I do Zoom calls with friends. We just recently celebrated International Speaker Day, which was on March 14th, which is also known as Pi Day. Pi Day, right? 314. But we made the pie bigger, which is the mantra of it all comes together, right? But I had multiple people giving me shout outs online. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize the impact I had on these people. I was not looking for a return. That's the wonderful thing about the spirit of collaboration. I'm not looking to gain anything. But if you are a coach and this is something you do, then get paid for it. But when I'm offering free advice or just helping somebody level up, all I ask for a return is top of mind awareness. If you know an event, you have a friend that's like looking for what I do, let's have a conversation.
I think the mutually beneficial relationships, and then that can even trickle down to personal relationships. It's really who is valuing you. If it's one-sided, sometimes that might be the relationship you might have to shed, because there's so much that we can do together to make the world a better place, that if it's one-sided and you're always helping, I like that dedicated Zoom time and not just picking the brain. I saw a woman who had a course, a book, a following. And she had said once, if someone keeps asking for a few minutes, but they've never followed me, they've never read an article, they never purchased my book, they never just even invested some time into what I've already put out there that I've spent time and sweat equity in, they probably don't want just 5 minutes of my time. You might need to go buy my book first, and I know that's not what you're saying, but really respecting the value of the time of people that you're spending and making sure that the relationships are there, but they're valuable ones, and paying attention to being around the right people and always learning. And I like that it's almost, coaching can be very vulnerable, and improv is definitely hard. I've taken a speaking course with Vin Zhang. He did a virtual one. He's a magician.
I know Vin.
And he did this, and he's so funny, but improv was so hard for me. I'm almost a little too rigid and responsible to be so crazy on. And so for like podcasting and conversation works for me, but public speaking can. But it's not the same way for me as it is for you. And that's okay too. You find your platform and you do what works for you. But I do push myself on stage to challenge myself. But there's also things that I know I need to share with people from a journey that can be helpful. So anyway, I love everything that you're saying, because you're showing that even though you've had the experience, you're doing what you love, you're still learning and perfecting it, and you're asking for help and learning from others. And I think we can continue doing that. We should always be learning, like you said.
Yeah. And I love Vin. I've seen him present. He is just amazing. But you started talking about improv. And so like anything, it's a muscle. Sometimes our whole life is improv. But when you're thinking about, okay, how can I be authentic and use the skill set of improv on stage or in a sales consultation or in front of audience clients? What is that? One thing I'm going to give to you, Amber, is start flexing that muscle in your daily life. How do you do that? Maybe just be a caricature of yourself. And that might sound weird. But pretend you've given yourself this different backstory. You're checking out at the grocery store. They don't know you. And you can just live a different reality. And I'm not saying to lie and be some weird person, but why not interact in a different way and use skill of an improv? And so somebody gives you a phone call, a solicitor. This is something that I've done. You get those people and they're all like, hey, your extended warranties. And there have been times where I was like, okay, I'm going to go into a character, and I just answer the phone and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad you called. And then we see how the conversation goes. And
I love that.
But the idea is that's just a skill set. That's just a muscle that you're just not using every day, because you are reacting as yourself. But why not react as a different character or take different decisions? Because I think a lot of the times we already have our preconceived ideas of how we are going to react in that moment. Improv, you react in different ways. You take it in different directions. And
is the point to see things in different ways, different perspectives? Can that flexing that muscle help you be more understanding and pull more empathy into life potentially?
Of course, all the time. I think it's also being open to new ideas. Let's say you have kids, I imagine, right?
I have a stepdaughter and then a 4-year-old. Yep.
Okay. So maybe your 4-year-old has like weird ideas, and I want to go have pizza in the park or something like that. Like, we don't have pizza in the park. We don't never do that. Like,
My Little Pony. Something with My Little Pony usually.
Yeah. So, hey, we're going to have a My Little Pony pizza party. Yep. That's not a thing. No, it is a thing now. And so just being able and playing with kids, and there's so much imagination there. And we do it with kids all the time. And one of the stories when it comes to yes and improv, you were there for. This was at the $1 Million Roundtable in October, and we were doing an engagement activity coming back from a break. We had set down playing cards on everybody's chair. I gave everybody the task was to create different poker hands. And so I'd show on the board, go ahead and make a flush. Flush is 5 numbers of the same suit. Make a straight.
I wasn't doing so hot there.
Yeah. Right. And everybody's running around the room trying to create this. And
grown
so I had
are excited, running around.
Yes. And they love competition, right? And so the final one was a royal flush. And this gentleman comes up to the stage. He says, we have a royal flush. I'm like, bring everybody up. And then this other gal named Angela comes up to the stage. I have a royal flush as well. I'm like, but he got here first. Then she says to me, he has hearts. I have spades. Spades trumps hearts. I said, that's great, but you weren't first. she would not relent. She would not leave that stage. She wanted to win. And I let her know, I'm like, the prize is you get to stand on stage. She thought there was a bigger prize at hand. And she's like, I want to bring up my whole entire team. I want to recognize them. So she brings up her team. I don't know how everybody who was on her team happened to get a royal flush. Like, that's weird to me.
Yeah.
So, because the other gentleman was with 4 other random people. So Angela brings up her team, and I'm going to yes and, because she will not relent. And so in that moment, I said, how can we create a bigger stage? How can we create a bigger pie? Let's have a little bit of fun. And so I said, Angela, your prize is you get to stand on stage with us and take a photo. And then she wanted more. And she was so disappointed that was the prize. I also gave away nose flutes to the winners as well. And so when I gave her the nose flute, the nose flute. Let me show you. This right here is a nose flute. It's a piece of plastic that goes underneath your nose. You blow the wind through your nose. It directs the wind into your mouth, where the music is made.
Okay.
Wait, try it one more time. Happy birthday. So that was the prize.
These were not used nose flutes.
These were not used nose flutes. No, I usually give those away. But it was such a silly competition, but she felt like she needed to win. So I said, yep, join us on stage. And it could have been very awkward. She could have complained. She could have done this. But I was like, this is going to happen. We're going to move forward with this.
And it's kind of like in life, Rob. I mean, you have to manage all these people. They're staring at you. There's bright lights. And your job is to keep everything really seamless and transition. Yes. So it's like any of us have to be prepared for that. And so maybe we weren't going to touch on risk management, but really, Rob, you are mentally, the yes and is helping you prepare for things that might not go according to the perfect agenda course. And so you're always looking for that transition point to pivot. And that's a gift I think you've been talking about with us. Part of your journey has been perfecting that and always having fun and adapting that. And so that's certainly something every one of us could take away today. Yeah. But I know we're not done with your journey because we haven't gone to Dubai yet.
Oh, well, I can track Dubai to my relationships again. That was from another MC who I admire. His name's John Petz, and he recognized my skill set, and he had an opportunity to go speak in Italy for a special event conference, which was called Planners Extraordinaire, which was luxury events. And he just said, this is not the right fit for me. They can only pay my airfare, but this might be a good opportunity for you to showcase. I said, great. So he sent me that lead. I went there. That spun off my first event in Dubai, which spun off my second event and my third event. And so I'm currently in negotiations to maybe go back there in a couple of weeks. And the one event that I went to a couple of weeks ago, I didn't make money on that one again. And like, well, why do you keep doing this? Does that make sense? And I think sometimes with this group of people, the luxury wedding planners and event planners in Dubai, I had to give them a couple shots at me. They had to see my skill set. I had to not be a one and done. And sometimes it takes a couple of impressions, we'll say, for it to actually turn into business. And I think if you keep showing up, you're not just the person who's looking for that silver bullet, the quick track. What's the thing? For me, it's about showing up and serving.
Absolutely. And we were talking with that panel that I mentioned earlier just last night. And sometimes you're in these positions and you're not really sure. There's not a metric you can track of like, this converts to a sale, some monetary value. But if you are doing what you love and you keep showing up, and even if you're really early in business and you're just starting out in some roles that Disney in the parking lot, you're not really sure. If you do a good job, people will see you. And it's not always instant. I've had people vet me out behind my back, not knowing. They talk about me with other people within an insurance company, underwriters. My business partner knew about me, met me, liked me, but still inquired about me before he did business with me. And I think everyone could benefit from thinking if you keep showing up, and sometimes there's no direct monetary value, but you got to like it enough, stay the course. But I mean, look how this can translate. I mean, this is even new for you, Rob. You're saying in the last couple years. Yeah.
And that's fine with me. I don't have a vision board. I have a vision head. I always picture myself
It just keeps following you around.
Right. I think vision boards are good because you can look back and it's a constant reminder. But there are bucket list stages, things that I've listed or things that I want to do. And it was always a vision in my head to do certain places. I've always wanted to go to Dubai. And my next goal is to go to all the Disney parks in the world. And that's more for fun, if anything. But I have been able to, lack for a better term, manifest some of these things that I've done. And one of the greatest honors of my life is I did this last summer. I was the MC for the National Speakers Association conference.
That was like the original place you started, one of them.
Yes. Back in 2016, when I first went there, I was like, this is amazing. And 6 years later, I was on that stage. But I always thought this would be amazing. And so one of my favorite stories from that is I went there with my friend Clint Pulver, probably one of the best speakers you'll ever see. If you don't know him, look him up.
Okay.
And we were there. We were just rookies. We were just these young bucks who were looking at this opportunity. And at the end of day one, we jumped on the stage and we took a selfie. We're on the NSA stage. Here we are. One day we'll be on this stage again.
Yeah.
And so to open the conference on day one of Influence for the National Speaker Association, Nashville, I remember when I got that call, I was just over the moon. And so I knew this was my moment to tell my story. And it was a love story to NSA, to the people that had gotten me where I am. So we had just received what is called our Certified Speaking Professional. It's a designation within NSA. Imagine within any association or any competency, there are certifications. And the Certified Speaking Professional is a lot of paperwork, a lot of time. You have to have 250 paid speeches tracked.
Okay.
And then over a 10-year span.
Wow.
And so you have to show them that. You have to show them video. And then you also have to have a certain dollar amount that you have made over a 5-year span.
No kidding.
So all these things to apply. And so only 15% of the people within NSA have gotten this. It's a hard thing to get. And so we made the goal to walk across that stage together to get our CSPs. So I get my CSP and I tell this love story about Clint and I looking to be on that stage, on the opportunity for us to perform together. And then he comes out. And I introduce him and he does his act. And then we take our selfie and like, here we are 6 years later. And there were some people who were new, first timers, and they come up to me, 6 years, how did you do that? I was like, it was tough. It was a lot of service. It was a lot of hustle, but it was something that I put on my radar. And luckily through my relationships, my friends, the people that believed in me, I was able to do that. And it's one of my greatest, proudest moments of my life.
Instead of the vision board, you had to have the mental game on in your head every day, tracking some of this and having that consistency. And that's how you could achieve that. So that's amazing because a lot of us do these tests and exams and we complain about a 3 to 6 month study while we're working, having to pass this exam. That's 6 years. That's a long time. That's pretty amazing. And when you told me about the speaking part, I think the last time I saw you, I didn't realize the complexity of that. So that's really motivating. That's pretty cool. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I believe it's this next phase of my career this is what I'm leaning into. And I'm still telling people I'm in the growing phase of this, where I'm still trying to figure out the speaking business. I haven't got it figured out, but I have a lot of momentum. I've done a lot of what I've wanted to do.
So I would say, really, if we were to start to close this out and talk about the takeaways, I mean, there's so many juicy pieces in the middle of all of this and people to give kudos to. In addition to yourself doing the work, I think that we can continue, no matter what age we are, to keep crafting and growing and learning. And so if you were to kind of close this up with a pretty little bow, I mean, is there anything else in addition to that? You're having some grace with yourself, you're having some fun, and you're always appreciating the relationships that you're putting in front of yourself. You're hanging around the right people and you keep adding to your tribe, right?
Right. There's one takeaway. Figure out what your superpower is and learn to serve your community. For me, that's been what's been helpful for me is serving, showing up. And then I use the word showcase. Serve, show up, and showcase. What does showcase mean? Well, sometimes we're asked to do something for free. Sometimes we're asked to do something that may not have a monetary reward, right?
The analyticals hate it, but sometimes you just gotta be okay with no direct metric.
Right. And that's why I say showcase, because you're not doing it for free. You're showing everybody what your skill set is, what's your superpower. Yeah. So if you can serve and showcase and then be top of mind, you're going to be that person that people will want to refer. And whatever that is, do it with enthusiasm and do it the best you can. Sometimes people do get worn out because they don't know when to say no. So there are opportunities. I was asked to be a part of the wedding association here in Utah, be on the board. I believe in it, but I just had to say no because it's not my direction at this point. Plus, I knew I couldn't do it to the best of my abilities. Right. And I didn't want to disappoint people either. So
yes, the boundaries can also be a reputation saver too, because if you can't do it right, and it's okay to say no and let them know.
Yeah.
Not my season right now, but it doesn't mean it can't be there for you in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've been top of mind for me, and I'm so glad that you made the time to talk with me today in the audience. So I really appreciate it, Rob.
And I appreciate your patience. This has been months in the making, but we follow each other's journeys, and I think we're champions of each other. I applaud what you do here with the podcast and the community you have built as well.
I will see you at the next conference, probably.
Yeah. And I'll see you on the dance floor.
Right. Exactly. Thanks so much, Rob. Thanks for the listeners listening in. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Amber Stitt Show. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, and more, please visit me at amberstitt.com. Until next week, enjoy your journey at home and at work. Thank you for listening.